hello, everyone. This is Eric.
In Austin.
And we're back again with Let's Take 5 for our next part on the Billy Wilder countdown. This is a podcast where we look at some of the greats in cinema history, and we break down 5 of their movies and talk about why they are so great and why they may, in fact, be legendary as well. So we've been doing Billy Wilder. Before this, it was Robert De Niro, and the movies that we recently reviewed were Sunset Boulevard and Ninotchka, which are both films of Billy Wilder, and going in chronological order, we decided to go with one of Austin's favorite Billy Wilder films, Ace in the Hole. You notice I emphasized Austin's favorites.
I'm sure the audience noticed too.
Yeah, so Ace in the Hole, which I'm going to let you talk a little bit about Ace in the Hole. What is Ace in the Hole? Because we honestly, a lot of this podcast, and if you've been listening to this podcast, you know we it's necessary to go through the films almost piece by piece by piece, and depending on how complex the film is, you, like The Deer Hunter, for instance, we basically just talked about the entire steps through the through line with The Deer Hunter. Ace in the Hole is a film that, I mean, we can talk about the plot in like 5 minutes of that movie. I don't feel like it requires much effort, but this is, I feel like, so far on the podcast of the films we covered, this is in the lower tier for me. So, but sure. It's in good company.
Yes.
So which causes a lot of that. So what's Ace in the Hole?
Ace in the Hole is a story about a reporter played by Kirk Douglas who has been, I believe he's been kicked out of several newspapers at this point.
Big time newspapers.
From major cities. And now he's in a small town and says that he can save them $200 a week because he's worth way more than he's going to let them pay him.
Yeah. He thinks he can find a good story in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and turn the paper, which has a circulation of it's like 2,000 or something like that, small newspaper, and turn it into some juggernaut.
And he's a big shot. Kind of all the imagery you have of like a slick, sleazy newspaper man. He talks way faster than everyone else. He's very condescending and insulting, and he gets the job, and he's there for quite a while. Just begging for anything interesting to happen, something that can kind of put him back on the map, so he can basically leave this town and go back to the riches he wants. Mm-hmm. And one day there is an accident, and a man is trapped in a cavern. There's some rocks on top of him, and this reporter finds this kind of golden opportunity to turn this rather simple story and also rather simple conclusion into an entire media circus.
Yeah, total. And the guy's one of the people, it's not a prospector, but one of the people that works to get the guy out of the mountain once it's collapsed on this poor guy in the shaft. He says that he can get him out in 16 hours, and they tell him, nope, you're going to drill from the top because we want to stretch this story as long as possible. Meanwhile, there's a guy pinned underneath rocks, and the only one that's communicating with him is the Kirk Douglas character through a little cubby hole. So basically, yes, it turns into a media sensation. He's able to succeed in what he wants to do. Thousands of people come from all over. In fact, there's one family we follow who was on their way somewhere else and decides to camp there for a couple days and ends up staying there the whole time. We see him on the eventual Ferris wheel that is erected in this parking lot. This turns into a media extravaganza, but...
And we'll avoid the ending for a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit more about it, because the film also, I believe, went by the title The Big Carnival for quite a while, and the Ferris wheel is part of that metaphor of the complete circus that this becomes.
I grew up in southern Indiana, so this is kind of a familiar story for me, because I don't know, a lot of people know this. Some of the biggest caves in the world, not just the United States, are actually in Kentucky. And I grew up just by Louisville, Kentucky, and small town Indiana. And we had always heard about stories of people getting caught in mine shafts. And in particular, there's one story that's actually referenced in the movie where a guy was trapped for like 40 days, and they were just too late. They almost got there in time, but he did, I think, expire before they were able to find him. Yeah. But anyway, so this film for me, I found a lot of it rather annoying. I appreciate. I think Wilder has a good script here, but I really do not like Kirk Douglas in this film.
His performance of the character,
both. Both, I think. Kirk Douglas was known for kind of doing whatever the fuck he wanted with his characters anyway. So, I mean, see Spartacus or whatever, which he ended up directing that film. I mean, Kubrick's on the title, but it's not a Kubrick film. I don't consider it one. I mean, I love him in Paths of Glory. I mean, it's not like he's not capable of doing great performances, but he was the hottest shit at the time, right? I mean, or one of. And I just feel like this character is one of the more deplorable, obnoxious characters in cinema movie history. He's abusive towards women. He's abusive towards everyone he ever meets. And he's hypocritical as well. And I feel like there is no pathos with this character that actually amounts to anything because the character is so disgusting that when he judges other people for being disgusting, I get angry. I actually get angry. And if that's the emotion I'm supposed to feel, then I think Billy Wilder pulled it off.
I think it is, because I've seen almost all of Billy Wilder's films, and the reason why this is one of the ones I think should be on our 5 is because this is far and away, I think, his most cynical movie.
Okay, I'll go with that.
Even more than Sunset Boulevard, which was very harsh towards Hollywood behavior. This one is really it's attacking the news and was rather prophesizing.
Yeah.
Actually, that kind of works. Actually, it worked. Of recognizing that news will just become sensationalism.
Yeah, well, there is actually a point where the newspaper he goes to work for, right outside the boss's office, you don't get the joke yet, but there's a big stitching right outside his office, a big 30 by 40 stitching that says "Tell the truth" on it.
Yep,
which is pretty ironic because. What's the truth? What is the truth here? Well, they're creating the truth.
Exactly.
Right? They're creating it.
And one of my favorite, unnerving stories to watch are stories where it is about forcing a narrative onto a non-narrative event. Mm-hmm. And, right now, my favorite shows in the air is a show called Unreal, which is about behind the scenes of a show like The Bachelor and what they do psychologically to these women to create the narrative they want for easy TV. And it's awful and it's horrifying. And you get the same thing here, but instead of making, extreme drama like in Unreal, you're trying to create a happy story when there actually isn't one.
It's like looking in a mirror at a mirror.
Yes.
That's kind of what I get with. Because you actually see now that he actually corners the market on the news in the area because eventually it starts attracting news reporters from the New York Times, the Washington Post, places flying all the way to Albuquerque, New Mexico to follow this story because it ends up being so huge. But he's the only one that's ever allowed to go into the mine and talk to this poor guy because the sheriff is not allowing the other press to do it, right? Which obviously there's a point being made here about the journalism and how it ties into media because the sheriff's also going to be running for mayor running re-election for sheriff, and so he's using this to his advantage. So all the airtime if it goes to the Michael Douglas character and the sheriff.
Kirk Douglas
character.
And that to me is also why the movie is so fascinating because, yes, he is an insanely deplorable character. You're watching a train wreck happen. The most sympathetic character is the man in the mine. Mm-hmm. And it's an uneasy solution what's going on here. The girl of his.
Yeah, so the guy's married to a deplorable wife as well.
And she is ready to leave him, but that's not the narrative that Kirk Douglas is crafting.
No,
as his
he needs her to be a sympathetic wife that's really upset. But the way he gets her to stay in the town is she runs a local restaurant that gets maybe one customer. I think she said she sold 5 hamburgers the prior week.
Yeah.
Well, now that the carnival's in town and everyone's there, she can't keep up. She's fielding orders so fast, and she's becoming rich off it. So the idea is wait till they get him out of the mine, make the money off the restaurant, then steal it from the register. Mm-hmm. And because she doesn't own the restaurant, she works there. It's owned by the guy in the mine's father and mother. And then take the money and leave.
Yeah.
And this is encouraged by the Kirk Douglas character as well.
It's just a fascinating through line for everywhere where you have awful actions happening. You have corruption being encouraged by everyone, while underneath it is supposed to be a happy, feel-good, the people who are going to visit this mine are all hoping he gets out. They're not rooting for a collapse. They're rooting for the victory. They're buying into the media narrative of we're watching a hero's tale happen. Mm-hmm. and we're going to be part of history because we're going to watch his heroic exit. And that is more sympathetic to them because of the heroic exit. If he got out in 16 hours, that's not a story.
No,
but if you're emotionally invested, then it is.
Then I feel like it featured. I keep calling him the Kirk Douglas character. I apologize for that, but I feel like they feature him way too much.
Chuck,
yeah, they feature Chuck way too much in this movie. Then I think and then maybe that is because he is played by Kirk Douglas. And notice I keep saying the Kirk Douglas character. I could not even remember the character's name. I didn't want to know the character's name. I hated this guy. And there's so much focus on this character. I feel like they're pulling focus from the actual narrative that they wanted to tell. And that's what it ended up being to me. What you talk about, the sympathetic character, for instance, being the man who's in the mine, he's not featured enough in the movie for me to actually to earn the sympathy. Of course I'm going to feel bad about someone who's trapped underneath a rock. And that's the way we see him, trapped underneath a rock. There was no scene where the guy was in there just by himself. There were no scenes with there were no other characters for him to interact with. The only sympathy that you ever feel from him is just because he is always bouncing off of Chuck's character, because it's the only person that really gets to talk to him, other than towards the very end of the movie that changes. And unfortunately, the only way you end up feeling more bad about him, because in the contrast to Chuck, you know that Chuck is using him and lying to him. That's where it kind of comes from. So the sympathy it's never earned from the character, it's earned from the circumstance.
And I think that's a bit of what Billy Wilder is going for. I always found the scenes with Chuck and the man trapped in the mine, the cavern, to be very fascinating, because this is the one moment where Chuck is sort of alone, and he doesn't really need to lie or put on the show as much. He actually slows down, and he actually creates a rapport with the man that he doesn't have with anyone else. He is definitely lying to him about how to get him out of there and kind of what's going on the outside. But there is kind of moments of, like, almost friendship, which is something that he has nothing even close to on the outside, because he's a scheming asshole to everyone.
Well, it's because, and also, it's one of those instances, like, there are no atheists in foxholes type of thing. Well, this guy's going to make friends with whoever is, the guy underneath it is going, the rock is going to make friends with whoever's going to come talk to him. And I agree that eventually, yes, the brakes start to get hit at some point, because eventually Chuck starts to empathize with the guy, but I feel like it happens much later in the movie than you think it is. The struggle goes on way too long, which is obviously the point of the film, but during that struggle, everything outside of the mine I see him do is just absolutely horrible. And particularly one instance where the wife is a horrible person as well. I mean, we mentioned that already. She tries to sleep, which again, is this just because it's Kirk Douglas? I don't know. But she goes in and tries to sleep with Chuck in the mother's bedroom, and where Chuck has sort of set up his office, which they've offered to him. And of course, he gleefully accepts it in there. And he goes, "No, I need you to be I can't let you be happy. You need to be sad." That's the narrative I'm trying to tell. And it did shock me. I will grant it then, and then but it's obviously a different time now than it was then, so it shocks you even more. But she leans in to kiss him, and because it's Kirk Douglas and because it's Billy Wilder, which there's always some sort, I feel like there's a lot of romance or anti-romance, and people are going to get kissed. She goes in to kiss Chuck, and Chuck slaps her, and then slaps her again, and slaps her again, and now she's crying. He's like, "Oh, that's the face I want you to have."
Yeah.
Wow. Holy shit.
And this is a 1951 movie. This is still made within the Hollywood system.
Yeah.
It's starring a major Hollywood star. There's a reason why this wasn't a huge hit when it came out. Because it is so dark and cynical. And that just really wasn't working for audiences in the late 40s, early 50s.
It didn't work for me now.
Yeah, it didn't work for you now. But it's so fascinating to look at Billy Wilder's career. And Billy Wilder, for me, he doesn't have, like, the unique, like, style that, like, you could look at other directors and go, "Oh, that's definitely a Billy Wilder shot."
Except for one film, spoilers later, The Apartment, which we're eventually going to talk about.
Yes.
There's something. So remind me of that, because I don't want to forget. But go ahead.
So to me, Billy Wilder, what kind of makes a Billy Wilder movie for me is how he treats his characters. They're always so... he's using kind of the Hollywood system for characters, but he's going for a much richer and much more reflective look at society. As we saw that with Sunset Boulevard, and we saw him use characters to make stronger political points in Ninotchka, which are two very different films. And this is even more different than those two, because it is so...
Well, they're better. I'm messing with you.
Cool. It's fascinating that he's able to look at the worst of humanity in the same kind of lens he's able to look at the best of humanity. He's able to let the characters be the characters, and he gives them a platform to succeed and fail.
Yeah, I feel like he just overstates it, I guess, is the issue. The issue for me, because there was never any real. I mean, yes, if you want to show me a movie about a dark side of humanity, and that is going to be the focus, obviously, of that film, and that's fine. It can be the focus. It can be 90% of the film, but it can't be 99% of the film. To me, there was. I enjoyed the critique of American sensationalism, media sensationalism, the way the media drives politics, and the way it uses that and money, always the thing, the underlying thing at the bottom of this that makes humans do these sort of things. But there was never any contrast to anything else, and when it was extraordinarily fleeting. For instance, my favorite character was the father of the guy in the hall, which we see a few times. Who's just like, well, I just really hope they get him out of there, And he sort of lets this happen because he trusts these people, and to me, that works. He's obviously leveraged with a son who's in the hole, but his son is going to be there. He's going to latch on to whoever's speaking with him because that's his only human contact. This guy's lets this whole circus go on around him because he believes in what they're doing, and even when he starts to second guess it, to me that could have been emphasized more. There had to have been someone out there looking around, going, "Can we get this fucking guy out of the hole?"
I think that's supposed to be the audience. To me, this movie works as a warning film more than anything else.
It's like the bystander effect, right?
A bit, yeah. And to compare it to another show on the air, we have talked off air a lot about the show Black Mirror, which tells stories in a Twilight Zone fashion of not anti-technology, but the dangers of how we use technology and how we can become isolating and damaging to our fellow man. I like the show a lot, but sometimes you found the show almost to be too cynical.
Yeah.
And I think that show, I mean, obviously there's more sympathetic episodes, like episode 4 of that show, but really it gets down to, like, it's up to you to kind of scream at the TV and then just scream at your real life, stop this from happening.
Yeah, I guess satire is always going to have some measure of cynicism in it.
Yeah.
And this, I want to say this is kind of a satire, okay? There's some really goofy things.
Once you have the carnival element.
Carnival, and the character himself of Chuck is just so obtuse that it doesn't, it just seems almost otherworldly, right? And so the whole thing turns into satire, but when satire gets cynical and gets really, really cynical, it ends up like a snake eating its tail for me. The cynicism when the cynicism is downright mean, when the satire almost becomes mean, I feel like it loses. Satire is designed as a, obviously a way to change or, at least shift someone's paradigm, or let you examine things through a different lens. This almost seemed like it just made me hate everything. Everything I saw, I just hated. I hate that character. I hate that character. I hate this carnival. I hate that they're not saving this guy. And then it goes on for a really, really long time until I guess we can go now.
Let's do it.
So it starts to become obvious the guy's dying. They need to get him out. They actually bring a doctor in, and the doctor says that, hey, he needs to be out by tomorrow.
And his performance radically changes because he's very much in the, gee whiz, I'm so happy you're going to help me, to I'm having really dark thoughts.
Yeah.
I'm alone.
And he's listening to that drill hitting constantly on the roof, which is I thought was extraordinarily effective. It almost works as the beating of a drum.
Yeah.
That continues throughout the whole film because you hear this. You see this as a trick developed by Akira Kurosawa and Seven Samurai. Constantly keep the drum banging, and is used today by film directors like P.T. Anderson and movies like Magnolia.
Sure.
You constantly have the beat going on to keep it going, and that constant drill, ting, ting, ting. It's just not fast enough. It's coming for him, but it's just not fast enough, right? So they tell him, they say, okay, if he's going to die by tomorrow, now Chuck starts to kind of put on the brakes a little bit, but never commits fully to it. But he's like, okay, we need to save this guy. So actually that guy that said get him out in 16 hours, let's go with that plan. But by now it's too late because the drill's been working. Now the walls are too weak, so you can't support the walls. You have to go in by the drill. So he's... At this point, it's seeming like he's condemned this man to die, right? The guy says, "Hey, can you get out my wife's anniversary present, which is this thing that I got her, yada yada yada." He goes into Kirk Douglas does this request for him. He pulls out this anniversary present, gives it to his wife. The wife says, "No, I'm leaving town. I don't give a shit about this. This is ugly. I could buy something better than this now." Chuck wraps the scarf around her neck, starts to choke her with it to the point where he's going to kill her. She grabs scissors, stabs him in the stomach, and now we constantly have to deal with this impending death of the character too. Like, this is not a trope at this point, it becomes a trope later. Everyone knows that if the hero or protagonist gets stabbed in a film today, 40 minutes later we're going to watch him die. Right? Do you want to take my mind?
Well, I found the scarf to kind of be what is wrapping up how the story works. It is the narrative is now dying. The narrative he's creating, the happy, we're going to get him out here story, and the scarf represents a lot of that. It is the happy, like, when he gets out, the wife's gonna run up and hug and kiss him. That's going to be the picturesque moment, and it's not because the never-ending darkness around them can't sustain this bullshit.
Yeah,
and to use the scarf in such a offensive way makes that happen. And then we get to the end of the story where the man is not going to get out and hug anybody.
He's not going to get out. Yes.
He dies.
Yeah, they bring in a priest to have him read his last rites. Meanwhile, Chuck's still bleeding. And then eventually Chuck goes into the newspaper. And this is so Chuck goes into the newspaper. What were your thoughts? He goes in there, he makes
his proclamations.
His proclamations, which are supposed to be sort of the end of some sort of redemption arc.
Well, I never found it to be a redemption arc. I found it to be an awareness way too late. I think redemption, you need to have acts going towards a better life.
I agree.
And this was simply he finally saw that the creation he made wasn't a great career move, and it impacted so many lives, and it's all devastating, and everything is worse off now because of it. And that's what he recognizes.
I don't feel like he recognized it. I guess that's my problem, is that, okay, so once the man dies in the hole, he gets up on top of the hill and then says to the entire carnival, everyone pack up and go home, he's dead. Well, what are you waiting for? Get out of here. It's like, you created this.
Yeah.
You created this, and your turn is so fast. It's like he gets stabbed in the scissors, and ding, now I'm a good person. And
I don't think he's a good person.
But he judges them. So my issue is he has no right to judge them.
Oh, he doesn't.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that... Oh, then why not watch the film? I don't think there was enough... The reversal here is not complete.
It's the Frankenstein monster. It's you've created all this, and it's backfired so bad.
That's so obvious, and it doesn't work for me. Like, it's enough. I don't buy that he actually. I guess there wasn't enough for me to actually buy. It's easy to care now that the guy's dead or dying, and he doesn't start to care until the guy's dead or dying, and then he judges everyone else for his mistake. The guy would be. Let's remember, this guy would be out of this hole if it wasn't for him. He killed this man. He killed this man.
Well, the Kirk Douglas character Chuck has no real sympathy for humanity. He sees the people out in the field as ways to make money.
Where's my anchor here, though, Austin? I guess
I think it's effective film if it made you feel this way.
Yeah, I mean, I guess yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where you can say, okay, if I run into the guy who plays Joffrey Baratheon in real life and I hate the guy when I see him, he's probably doing a good job, right? But it's not just the actor. It's just the entire character never gives me the only character that's telling me who's trying to justify how I feel about the film is the character that's the only reason why I feel that way about the film. It just seems to me to be a bit, because it's not a redemption arc, because it falls short of that redemption arc, it wasn't poignant to me. It was annoying to me. It felt like I was being talked down to. Like, I'm one of the people in the carnival, and now this guy's telling me how I'm supposed to feel, and yet he created the carnival. It's like being judged. I think you get the point.
I do, but it's all similar to another movie that I really like and you hate, which is The Wolf of Wall Street.
Yes.
Where that is a movie where you're watching despicable acts for 3 hours, and it's up to the audience to judge because there's no character on screen judging him.
Well, that's actually a great point. It's actually a lot like the Wolf Among Us in that regard. Wolf Among Us. I have a YouTube video game channel in case anyone wants to check out Wolf Among Us. I should do a review on that one day or talk about it. But it's a better story than Wolf of Wall Street, I'll tell you that. Wolf of Wall, yes, it is it's the satire. It's the satire that it delves too far into cynicism. Like, it's the Grand Theft Auto 5 for Grand Theft Auto effect, where your cynicism is, you're using satire, and then you're using your cynicism to judge people who you're satiring with your cynicism. It just, it's not as effective for me if you don't give me some beacon of hope, something to follow, something to care about. And Ace in the Hole is not really interested in that. It's interested in telling me as a consumer, or as someone who now obviously in the future, but someone who's interested in what's trending on Twitter, that I'm the problem.
Well, no, it's not saying,
or I'm the idiot. One or the other.
It's saying that you have men like Kirk Douglas and women who are creating these narratives and doing things where they are being condescending to you. This is the movie pulling back the curtain, recognizing that the Wizard of Oz is an idiot.
But the people know that curtain already exists. I guess that's the issue, is we can't help but eat it up. We don't have a choice.
But it keeps happening in today's society.
I know it keeps happening because we don't have the full context. I mean, if I dislike someone in the media because stories are getting printed about how horrible this person is, but actually in reality this person is a great person, I have no context. All I have is what you're giving me. Yeah. So I don't think you can judge the people at the carnival like the movie wants me to judge. It's all him.
I don't judge people at the carnival.
Okay. Well, because I felt like it was trying to. So maybe that's where.
No, I don't think it ever was. It was showing. It wanted you to judge the corruption, never the people being manipulated by it.
Because the sensationalism is so prevalent that it's almost impossible to not feel like it's a cog in the machine of criticism, right? I mean, the movie is on the nose about the points it's trying to make, right? And I feel like in the end it ends up being too on the nose. But I did notice the sadness when the people leave. They're obviously sad the guy died, and all the people are flooding out, and then my favorite child, the father alone. Yeah. Just sitting there. That was great. That was effective because, yes, you need that to ground you and actually care about the person in the hole, not as a trending topic on Twitter, which is what it was to the carnival, right?
Yeah.
I guess that was the problem for me. I felt like at the very least, if the movie didn't judge the consumer, Chuck sure did. And Chuck has no right to judge the consumer, and that just angered me. That's basically ended up how I ended up feeling. So yes, you could say that maybe the movie is effective in that regard, but it's not a movie. But it's also a movie I don't want to watch again because of that.
And I've now seen this twice, and it's very funny because, even though we disagree with this movie, you say all these things. I'm not going to interrupt you because I'm just going to end with, and that's why it's great.
Yes. Well, every point you made, I pretty much agree with the points. It's just it's basically the taste that it left in my mouth.
Well, as we wrap up, let's look at it within the context of Billy Wilder and how different this is from his other films.
Yeah, it lacks none of the charm.
Yeah, there's still witticism about the dialogue, but it's used.
But it's not funny.
No, it's never funny.
Yeah,
it's not a very funny movie at all.
No,
it's clever dialogue.
It's clever, yes.
Which he also co-wrote the screenplay as well, as he typically does, and. It has a striking look, but I think like he does so well, he just creates worlds that are so effective in what it wants you to feel.
Yeah.
Sunset Boulevard is such a noir story, and it's a fantastic noir story, like he also did in Double Indemnity. This is an awful world to live in, and it's him saying, I'm worried we are living in it.
Yeah, and it's very, it doesn't really move from one spot either, too. I mean, they probably shot it feels like they shot this movie in a week. Like, it's all right there. Right?
Yeah.
Again, it is what Austin said, too, or what you said. It's like I'm talking.
I know who I am. Oh, here you are judging the consumer.
I do. I know. I mean, you listen. It doesn't make it. There's obviously as someone who's. I mean, we're pundits here. Okay, we're giving an opinion. This isn't journalism.
There's a microphone.
Okay, exactly. My opinions are always going to be. I will always need moral anchors in my film, one way or another. It can go one way or the other. Like if the movie is ridiculously happy, I'm going to say, why is that too? I need to see one where this was so cynical without any levity in it and without the humor. Still very clever for me, but again, like Wolf of Wall Street. The whole time I'm in Wolf of Wall Street. Everyone in my theater's just laughing their ass off, right? Like they're making fun of these midgets, and they have like a 50-minute dialogue. I mean, it seems like a really long time about how they're going to get the midgets to stick to the board, and everyone's laughing hysterically. And I'm looking around, saying, "All you people disgust me."
Yeah,
like this. Really,
and I was laughing at the characters.
I'm not offended. Yeah. I'm not offended by it. Like that's totally different. That's a whole other conversation. I just like this. To me, this scene is reading as something that is horrifying.
Right.
To you all, it's reading as funny, and that freaks me out. With here again, this guy judging me for judging him, when obviously the movie's saying he should be judged. I just that kind of like, whoa. Fuck you! Like,
since I haven't compared
screw
this,
you, I'm gonna cut down. That's way too many swear words.
We have an explicit tag. It's fine.
Okay, and that's what I feel like.
Since I haven't compared this to a modern TV show in minutes, it to me it's like Breaking Bad in that I can watch a character I am so morally against as long as I find it interesting. As long as I find him and the character and the scenario interesting. Once you become boring, flat, redundant, obvious, I'm out. I never felt that for this film because I just kept watching this train wreck that can only go one direction, and you're wondering, is this 50s Hollywood film dark enough to do it? And Billy Wilder said absolutely.
Well,
they gave it the right ending.
In that respect, I do agree. I do think Breaking Bad has more anchors and more levels of contrast, but
it's a longer story.
But it is. He also started out as someone you sympathized with. And you never sympathize with.
No.
Okay. So I'll quit arguing.
Sure.
I'll quit arguing. It is at the very least. I will say this: it's kind of ridiculous. People don't talk about the movie as much because it definitely deserves to be talked about. And
right, it had kind of a resurgence in the past couple of decades where people kind of recognized, oh, this is a Billy Wilder film that should definitely be considered.
Yeah, I think it's odd. I mean, it's a Kirk Douglas, Billy Wilder.
Yeah,
it is bizarre. Maybe just because it was right or surrounded. Billy Wilder has got so many great films that sort of drowns. Yeah,
I mean, we are in our 5 films. We're only covering one of his Best Picture winners.
Yeah.
He has too many good films.
That's an interesting way to look at it. But anyway, that's how I think it was okay.
And I think it's great. But we'd love to hear your thoughts. You can leave a comment on the thread for this at theartimmortal.com. You can email us at letstake5@theartimmortal.com. You can follow this account on Twitter at the Immortals Pod, which shares with another podcast on The Art Immortal, which I also am part of, where we review one of the 1,001 movies, albums, food, songs, children's books, and TV shows that you must see before you die. And the episode we did yesterday covered Christopher Lee's Dracula.
Oh, wow. I want to watch that one.
It's awesome. Peter Cushing is Van Helsing. It's great.
I dig it. If you want to catch me, you can catch me at my YouTube channel, which is Constant Diversion, YouTube/Constant Diversion on there. And on there, I critique as well, but I stay in the realm of video games. I'm not working on anything currently. I'm in hopefully a transition period in my work, and it's sort of slowed down the production. But I do have some interesting videos on there, and someone's watching because we keep picking up subscribers.
That's fantastic.
So, but anyway, yeah.
And you can catch us next Friday where we're going to discuss Billy Wilder's immortal comedy, Some Like It Hot.
Now, that's a great movie.
And we're going to discuss it next week.
Yes, will.
We'll catch you all next time.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Make it 45.
What makes you so cheap?
A fair question, considering I've been top man wherever I've worked. You'll be glad to know that I've been fired from 11 papers with a total circulation of 7 million. For reasons with which I don't want to bore you.
Go ahead, bore me.
I'm a pretty good liar. I've done a lot of lying in my time. I've lied to men who wear belts. I've lied to men who wear suspenders. But I'd never be so stupid as to lie to a man who wears both belt and suspenders.
How's that again?
You strike me as a cautious man. A man who checks and double checks. So I'll tell you why I was fired. In New York, a story of mine brought on a libel suit. In Chicago, I started something with a publisher's wife. In Detroit, I was caught drinking out of season. In Cleveland,
I get the picture.
now then, I find myself in Albuquerque with no money. A burnt-out bearing, bad tires, and a lousy reputation.
Bad tires can be dangerous.
I've only one chance to get back where I belong. To land a job on a small-town paper like yours and wait and hope and pray for something big to break.